Welcome to Veterans Forum, a program by veterans, about veterans, for veterans and their families. I'm your co-host, Bob West, with Ray Chattery and Jerry Devlin. Our goal is to provide important information to you about legislation, benefits, support, and activities for you and your family by interviewing leaders in our community. Jerry, who do we have with us tonight?
We're very pleased and very privileged to have with us Lamarr Couser, who is himself the judge advocate for the Department of Maryland of the Disabled American Veterans and is a National Service Officer in Baltimore. Lamarr is a native Marylander, born in Mount Sinai Hospital in Baltimore, lived out of state for a long time, he's actually a Princeton man, went to Princeton High School in Cincinnati, and then later on went to the University of Maryland, came back to his native state, and we're lucky to have him, and he's here tonight. He wants to talk about a subject that will be of great interest to veterans who are out there in TV land. Great many people don't know the rights of veterans to military care based upon service-based injuries, and we're lucky to have Lamarr here to talk about it. We really want to give you a warm, buoy welcome, Lamarr.
Thank you. Thank you.
Welcome, Lamarr. Well, let's get started. Okay. Why don't you tell us what the service officer does?
Well, service officer for the Disabled American Veterans does a lot. We do outreach out in the local communities in the state of Maryland. We do claims assistance inside the regional office. We're a part of the community fabric of the veterans. I like to think that we're accessible for any veteran. It's one of the good things about DAV.
And one of the things we're going to show on the program is how to get a hold of the service officers at the DAV. So why don't you tell us what's happening currently with the service officers?
The service officers nationally, they're in every regional office in the state. We provide the assistance for all veterans and their families. Veterans who come back from Iraq, Kuwait, Afghanistan, that need that kind of assistance, whether it's dependency, educational, we provide that. So if they have a question or concern, they can reach us in a lot of different ways, our website, or come into a regional office and ask for a DAV rep.
Mm-hmm. We're lucky to have two DAV representatives here tonight, too. So, Ray, why don't you start us off with a few questions that you can ask Lamarr?
Yeah, one of the most important things, Lamarr, is that we are a DAV, but do you have to be a DAV member to get your service?
No, you don't. That's one of the first things that we would love every veteran that comes into our to become a part of our organization, but it's not a requirement. We'll provide that assistance. We do need to do representation, though, a form of representation, which is a power of attorney, which gives us the ability to represent that veteran or their family in front of the VA for claims assistance.
One thing that you've come to Bowie, the Chapter 7, several times a year, and all of the veterans get a letter. And a lot of them don't realize that they rate care and don't know it. And I probably cover some of these things that they might be looking for, especially like the Vietnam veterans. Of course, World War II veterans are getting slimmer and slimmer, but we have the Korean veterans and the Vietnam veterans, and then of course the current wars.
Correct. One of the things about the assistance and the outreach that DAV provides is that not every veteran wants benefits as far as entitlements for compensation. Some veterans want medical attention from a VA hospital, and that was one of the things that we also provide. When it comes to care, if a veteran meets us in a mobile service vehicle out in the community, meets us out in one of our events that we do with one of our partners, or meets us in the office, what we like to try to figure out what their need is. Some veterans just need assistance medically. They're coming from Afghanistan, Iraq, and more importantly, Vietnam, and they have presumptive conditions that they had no idea was available to them, such as the diabetes, prostate cancer, coronary artery disease. A lot of these veterans come back and they just assume that through old age that they got these disabilities naturally through their second career or whatever, but we advise them of some of the new legislation out there that actually have presumed some of these conditions are service-related, and during the era that they serve, they're shocked, to say the least, that they would have been entitled to these benefits for so long and never knew about it.
Now, one thing that I found out not too long ago, you didn't have to be at the Mekong Delta for Agent Orange. As long as you were in country, you rate Agent Orange benefits, and they just added a couple more symptoms to that list. Could you cover that?
Yeah, correct. The VA just changed new legislation and added a few more disabilities under the Agent Orange criteria. One of them is B, hairy cell leukemia, coronary artery disease, prostate cancer. Some of these disabilities took time to develop as far as the research is concerned medically. And at that time, what was determined was that the VA needed to cover those as well. One of the things that we like to bring to the veterans' attention when they come into our office is some of those very things. Some of the disabilities that they might suffer from, they might not necessarily disclose personally because those are things that they've been dealing with on their own. But when you bring the awareness to them as far as what they're entitled to, you'll be surprised that a lot of these veterans suffer from these presumptive conditions. And like Mr. Chattery has said, when you bring that to the forefront, you wind up finding out that you got a claim there and the veteran is entitled to file that claim and get benefits.
And people, the things they didn't even know about. For example, those of us who are Marines, we have a 20-year period when the water was inadequate at Camp Lejeune in North Carolina. And if you served there, for example, huge numbers of former Marines who served at Lejeune have male breast cancer, which is fairly rare. And the numbers are all out of proportion with the people who have it. And the average guy figures he's 65 years old, he's got cancer, and he lacks the knowledge or the scientific knowledge to know this can be traced back to the bad water at just one Marine Corps facility. Then they're also now they're trying to argue about Agent Orange in Vietnam, not merely in country, as Ray says, but how about the ships when the winds are blowing in into ships who are in Vietnamese waters or waters adjacent to Vietnam.
Right, and then they call that the brown water. I've had several cases such as those. Most of those, in the beginning, when a veteran files those claims, a lot of the information about their whereabouts, specifically the Navy guys and the guys in the Air Force that might have been stationed in areas outside of Vietnam, you have to do the research necessary to find out exactly where they fit under that presumptive. You get it won, but in most cases, like I've seen recently, you have to win it on appeal, primarily because a lot of the information, as far as the research is concerned, is not necessarily available through the development initially. And we advise all veterans to seek representation, especially when they get a denial, because it's not necessarily the VA's fault. I would say that their case got denied. Maybe the representation of how the evidence was presented or needs to be presented a different way. One of the things that I'd like to speak on through my experience is that when a veteran will file a claim, when you take the time to develop that through the process initially, a lot of the information that the VA has is only accessible through what they come back from the military service records back from the archives in St. Louis. And what's missing there is the treatment that exists now. If you're a veteran that got outside of the military structure and started seeing a private physician or seeking private care, a lot of that information is not accessible. So the VA is going to need that information. So that could be the missing piece that would link maybe one of these presumptives to show, that there was some treatment after service.
Now, one thing, for some of the veterans who are watching this program tonight, what should they bring to the mobile service in order, in other words, like a DD-214, any health records? What do you recommend that to be more prepared? What should they bring with them?
That's an excellent question, and that question doesn't get asked enough, quite frankly. Mobile service vehicles that we do out in the community is exactly what it is. It's mobile service. So we're not connected to the VA network as far as immediate access to claims information. So a lot of the information that we'll be processing during that time frame will have to be available through limited access through our screens and whatever the veteran brings to the office or to the vehicle. We suggest that the veteran, if he's never filed a claim before, always bring current medical documentation, bring a copy of a DD-214, bring any additional medical information as regards to dependency. And I think that's about it. I think if you bring enough medical information, you bring your DD-214, you come in there with an understanding on a thought process of exactly what you're seeking entitlement for, whether it's educational, whether it's adding new issues to an existing claim, whether it's filing your initial claim. Just have enough information available so that we can process it and give you the correct answer, so you leave not with a reply that we'll call you back. We'll get a better understanding of what exactly you're going to need to move forward with your claim, so that it has the success of being adjudicated and granted.
What typically is the trigger that brings a veteran out to one of the mobile vans?
One of the things is outreach that our national organization, our national office does to most of the veterans that are members. We also do mail-outs that are solicitations through chapters. So the outreach is normally through our mail-outs, especially when our mobile service vehicle is in the community. And we use chapters within that mail-out vicinity to bring awareness to the fact that, the vehicle is going to be in. Typically, you'll see people who are members who get our magazine come out to these vehicles, because our list is put out months in advance, so there's an understanding exactly where it's going to be at for you to come out and get the outreach. But outside of that, we're doing pretty good.
Jerry, as the state commander, how do you
well, we're blue in the face trying to tell people to get over this knowledge gap. People think the VA, the DAV, is an organization of people who already have claims with the Veterans Administration. And that isn't correct. And practically anybody who served in the service and had any kind of injury, which is practically everybody, and then you start that step. But we can't get, and I was one of those for years. I lived here in Bowie, and Ed Conroy was, when I was in the legislature, Ed Conroy was a senator, and he lost his arm at Heartbreak Ridge. And the late Butch Jokel was our campaign manager, and he lost both legs in Vietnam. For many, many years, I thought that that's what the DAV was. And it was Ray Chattery who told me that, look into your own record and you'll see you're obviously eligible. And and we've had people who've joined. They really have joined as social members. Here in Chapter 7 in Bowie, it's kind of an interlocking Marine Corps League DAV. The same people, they meet on consecutive nights, and people change hats. Same people, same officers. Well, guys who have joined said, all the other Marines are joining the DAV, so I'll join. And at least in one case, we know a guy who ended up with a 50% disability, a large disability, that he had never traced his problems back to his injury in Korea.
And then there was one gentleman who was getting, I think, 20%, and he went to the DAV office, and they got him an increase in his disability because of continuing problems. And as I say, you're not stuck with a percentage. This can change. You can go from 10% to 50%, and at some time, if it go to 100%. And this is what Lamarr's office does. This is what they do to get you what you deserve because of your commitment to the military.
I think, with all due respect, and I belong to most of the veterans organizations around, the DAV is a little different. The other organizations are places, and much of it, and maybe it's a little unfair, where you meet the Marine Corps League, you meet guys who served in the Marine Corps with you or someone else, and it's you have a couple of glasses of beer and you're with old friends who share common memories. The DAV is basically a service organization. That is its primary function, and almost exclusive function.
Right.
Yes.
Both gentlemen are correct in saying that, especially when it comes to claim assistance, you're not stuck at a percentage. We understand, and the VA understands especially, that when you have a disability you're suffering from, ideally through time, that disability